for reminding us on the importance of debate and the importance of paying attention to the kind of bills that we are discussing in this House. Mr. Speaker, as I rise to make submissions to the Tobacco Control Bill, it is imperative to note, and I hope that members of the Senate on both sides of the aisle will be able to remember that the last time that this bill was actually brought to this House was back in 2007. In 2007, Mr. Speaker, we did not have challenges of e-cigarettes. We did not have challenges of the younger generation now being used to be able to, make profit for these companies that manufacture tobacco. One of the biggest problems that I have seen, that I'm so glad that Senator Muma is trying to resolve when it comes to discussing this bill, is the issue of preventing the youth from being lured to smoke different flavors, where people will just be able to come in without stricter regulations, where in countries that people are exporting tobacco into this country, there are those stricter regulations. I was very happy to go through this bill. I happen to be a member of the Senate Health Committee. So we went through clause by clause of this bill and understood the challenges. There's an issue of profit versus health in this country. Yesterday we discussed the issue of the levels of nicotine. The good senator is proposing to this House that we control and limit the amount of nicotine in any nicotine delivery system or even in a cigarette from 20 milligrams to 10 milligrams. It is important to note that the industry is insisting and saying in their submissions, because I really hope that by the time we go into third reading, my colleagues will have an opportunity to read the Senate Health Committee report on this bill, because you'll see the submissions brought about by members of the public. You'll see submissions brought about by the industry, and you will be able to decipher what is important between the members of the public and the industry. And it's simply a matter of profit versus health. It is a matter of preventive versus curative. The other issue which is very, very important for us to look at it is that all pieces of legislations which were passed many years ago, at some point they will need to be updated, because nothing is static in this world. Things change on a constant basis. We have this challenge of the e-cigarette. Yesterday, before we left, before the rise of the House, I sat down with Senator Muma, and it was very interesting that she had an e-cigarette where on the outside cover, on the packaging, it talks about the dangers. But the moment you remove the package and you toss it out, then you will find that the e-cigarette itself looks like a toy. Mr. Speaker, I've just been handed this, and it's imperative because we have the youth sitting here. You will see that in this cigarette, it has a big warning here, very big warning. But the moment you toss this away, then you are left with this. The youth will actually sit with this e-cigarette, and it looks like a rubber. And they'll continue vaping. Actually, it looks like a power bank as well. They'll continue vaping. But the dangers in it is something that all of us must be alive to, the fact that we are killing the younger generation. So there's a question that Senator Muma raises, and she talks about flavors. Some of us, when we were growing, we knew people who were smoking what they call keraiko. When that person comes in 20 meters, you will note that that's a smoker. But today, there's no keraiko anymore. Someone will be able to smoke a strawberry flavor, walks in, and you think that they just had a strawberry milkshake. And yet they are killing themselves. So those are the things that we are being invited to be able to debate and agree on how we are going to save the younger generation from being sick, from their lungs collapsing. Mr. Speaker, the good senator has raised one very important point in terms of, taxation. And this is an issue that we were agonizing on, because when we start talking about taxation, then we start discussing issues to do with money bills, which we know that the Senate, under Article 114 of our Constitution, it's sort of like in the borderline in terms of the origination of the money bills. It has to be from the lower house. But she talks about a very important thing which all of us must look into in this bill, so that by the time we go into the third reading of this bill, or the committee of the whole, the amendments that will be brought are amendments that will be able to enrich the bill, will be able to put up strict regulations, because it is imperative that all the taxes that are collected from the tobacco industry, either today they go to SHA, some of the money go to SHA, so that when you are taken to the hospital with your lungs having collapsed because of being a chain smoker, there will be money to pay for you, and that can come from there. Number two, Mr. Speaker, we discussed the issue of approval and testing. We agreed that it is important that we divide those two. Let the ministry approve, let KEBS test, so that we know whether what the kids are smoking is proper, and they set proper standards. Because I see my time is running up, let me reiterate that one of the things that Senator Moma we need to tighten is on strict regulations of the tobacco industry in this country. We must tighten strict regulations. We must make sure that, in fact, for me, I'm of the opinion that we increased the age of smoking from 18 to 21, such that if you're 21 years old, it's the only time that you can be allowed to buy a cigarette. Number two, Mr. Speaker, advertising, it is important. Yesterday, when we were sitting in the committee, I remember the argument that we had with the majority leader in this House when we were discussing the gambling bill, in terms of how can you restrict online advertisement in cigarettes? How can you restrict people from gambling online? There's such a gray line in terms of allowing advertisement, restricting advertisement. That is something that distinguished senators we have to agree on. And in my view, I still feel that warnings are better than trying to say there is no online advertisement. Because when you say there's no online advertisement, there will be IP addresses from all over the world. You cannot stop them. And the youth will still be able to get into. So we need, in conclusion, Mr. Speaker, I think it is important to be able to balance the economic concerns as well as the health concerns. It is imperative to be able to focus a lot on preventive rather than curatives. That is the only way that we can be able to develop legislation that can help, this population. So, Mr. Speaker, as I end, I would love to see a country where we less population smoke. And in fact, Senator Moma would say that in Kenya has almost adapted to an environment where people don't smoke as much. If you go to Europe, everyone almost smokes. So we cannot compare the laws in Europe and the laws here. We have to say we are going to be completely unorthodox when it comes to legislation making and look at what fits this economy, what fits this population. I'd love to say no advertisement. Let's ban advertisement. I'd love to say let's stop smoking. In fact, my dear sister, Senator Veronica, yesterday was saying she wished that she was seconding a bill that will ban smoking in this country. That is not the reality. It can never happen. So because people will smoke, let us figure out how do we balance these economic concerns, because it's about money. In fact, what I would even propose is that when it comes to growing of tobacco in this country, it should be zoned to a particular region. When you zone it in that particular region, you'll know it's only that area which people will be able to smoke. One of the last things that the ministry was proposing in their submissions during public participation was amending the bill to make sure that the bill controls both substances with nicotine and those without nicotine. And for those who understand that marijuana does not have nicotine, I think the ministry was also getting into that area of saying that we now come up with one bill to control everything to do with anything that, any delivery system of nicotine and non-nicotine substances. So as I end, as I conclude, let me thank the good senator, but I want us to be realistic in terms of balancing the economic needs of this country versus the health of the population. Yes, tobacco kills, but can we run away from saying that we will now force every citizen of this country not to smoke? Let us be realistic that some will smoke. So stricter regulations, let us tax, and all that money, in my proposal, Mr. Speaker, sir, should go to SHA so that it treats those people. Very little should be left to preventive. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Senate Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to support this